thank you very much for inviting me today to join the National Health Careers Conference event. I'm really pleased to be here. I believe you can join in with the chat on Twitter via #HealthCareersLive. So let me introduce myself first of all. My name is Natasha Bazarski and I'm the National Lead for Return to Practice for Health and Care Professions Council Register. So what is the Health and Care Professions Council? The Health and Care Professions Council is a regulatory organisation that regulates 15 health professions and includes allied health professionals, healthcare scientists and practicing psychologists. If your profession is regulated by the HCPC, you need to be on the register to practice. The programme that I lead at Health Education England helps to support those on their return journey back to the register. So if anyone is sat in the audience today listening to this talk, I urge you to contact us on the programme to help you to return to the career you once loved and would love to get back to. In terms of the Healthcare Professions Council Return to Practice requirements, if you've been out of practice for 0 to 2 years, you can apply straight away to go back on the register. If you've been out of practice for 2 to 5 years, then it's 30 days of updating that's required. And if you've been out of practice for 5 or more years, then it's 60 days of updating that you require. And just to explain that 1 day of updating by the HCPC is classed as 7 hours. The HCPC has been really responsive in making changes in COVID-19 times. And one thing that they've really supported our returnees with is the timescale with which they have to apply to go back on the register. This was pre-COVID 12 months and has now been extended to 24 months just to allow our returnees that little bit more time to return to the register to collect their evidence to submit to the register. I have to say, on average, it doesn't take that long to return. It takes on average 4.5 months, but it just gives that flexibility within the programme for our returnees as well. The evidence that's accepted as proof of supervised practice has also changed slightly, so the HCPC will now consider virtual or simulated placement environments. There are also alternative forms of formal study that they will accept, including simulation as part of a certificated programme of study. The good thing about returning to practice to return to the HCPC register is it's a very flexible means of updating your skills and knowledge, and it is self-managed by you as the returnee. The HCPC obviously have their process to return to the register, and our programme at Health Education England will help support and guide you through that journey. The returnee, or you as the returnee, apply to go back on the register and you have your competency assessed by the HCPC. And as I said already, you have 24 months now in which to collate your evidence to go back onto the register. So in terms of how you go about returning to practice, there are a number of routes which our returnees take. And the good thing is about returning to practice with the HCPC is that there are a variety of routes to suit your individual learning needs. These routes include supervised practice, so practicing under the supervision of a registered professional, formal study, so a period of structured study provided by a person or organisation. So that might be an online learning course or a face-to-face practical course, for example. The other option is private study, which is a period of study where returnees might go and look on the internet for some knowledge updating, for some learning, maybe reading a journal article and perhaps critically appraising that, or they might look at their strengths and weaknesses through a SWOT analysis, for example. It's important to note that no more than 50% of your total hours can come from private study. So for example, if you were somebody returning needing to look to undertake 30 days of updating, you could choose to do 30 days of supervised practice. You could do 10 days of supervised practice, 10 days of private study and 10 days of formal study. or you could split it 15 days of private study and 15 days of formal study. So as you can see, it's a very flexible route that can suit the individual. So in terms of the eligibility criteria for the programme is open to and will support all current and former HCPC registrants looking to update their skills and knowledge. All former HCPC registrants who live in England and plan to work in England once returned to the register. Those who've been previously registered with the HCPC or qualified after undertaking a UK HCPC accredited programme but did not initially register with the HCPC within the first 5 years of qualification. If you've not registered with the HCPC since qualifying, you do need to contact the HCPC for advice before joining the programme. Registrants who've remained on the HCPC register for more than 2 years but have not practiced and consider themselves to be out of practice, we will also support. A recent change to the eligibility criteria is that we now support overseas qualified clinicians who are eligible for HCPC registration and who are residing in England, including those with refugee status and right to reside. If you have trained overseas and never formally registered with the HCPC, you need to follow the HCPC guidance on their website for the international registration process. And then we on the programme are happy to support you with any period of adaptation you may need to undertake to get onto the register. In terms of funding, there's a total of £1,300 available to each returnee. That is broken down into £500 that's claimable by a supervised practice placement provider. And the hope is that the organisation will use this to cover things like the DBS and contracts and uniform, etc. And then the £800 available to the returnee can help with things like childcare costs so that you can attend a practice placement, travel to placement, receipts for textbooks and things can be claimed for as well. So many, and obviously formal courses as well. There are some universities in England that do run profession-specific return to practice courses, but they are not validated or endorsed by Health Education England or the HCPC. However, many of our returnees obviously do undertake those and find those useful as part of their return journey. I think the key thing that I want to flag up to all potential returnees is that finance should not be a barrier to you returning to practice. So if you are interested in returning and worried about financial issues surrounding your return, please contact the programme and we will discuss this with you and help you as best we can. So why should returnees join the programme? They have access to support and guidance through the programme, support finding a supervised practice placement, access to e-learning modules. We have a close Facebook group with over 700 members on now, which is a brilliant environment for peer support and perhaps information on good courses that other returnees have undertaken and advice about gaining placements, etc. We also offer funding, as I previously mentioned. We are just about to offer some coaching for our returnees as well, which is a really exciting addition. And also being part of the programme enables us in the national programme to report the numbers of HCPC registrants that are returning to the register. So if you want to undertake a supervised practice placement, how do you go about that? There are two main ways that people return. That is either unpaid or the voluntary route, or the paid or employer-led route. And by far and away the most common route is the unpaid placement route. And this is basically where the returnee is offered a period of time within an organisation that is unpaid, and it's usually coordinated in conjunction with the Learning and Education Department. And on completion of the agreed supervised practice hours, the returnee can reapply then to go on to the HCPC register. And obviously if a position is available within that organisation, then they can obviously apply for that. I think the main benefits of the unpaid or voluntary route are that it does really allow a large degree of flexibility for the returnee to fit their hours in around other responsibilities and life things that they have going on in their lives outside of returning to practice. And I think it also allows the organisation to offer hours for their department that work for them as well. Often returnees that are on a unpaid route with an organisation will be offered a honorary contract in the NHS. The paid or employer route is another route where the returnee is offered a contract of employment with the organisation, and they're usually initially paid at band 3 or 4 until they've successfully returned to the register. And then once they've returned to the register, sometimes if they've been in a vacancy role, then they can be employed at that qualified banding for that vacancy they're sat in. And if they're not sat in a vacancy, then perhaps they can be offered a permanent position if one is available during the course of their return journey. The other option that is available on the paid route is that organisations can pay you at 75% of your qualified banding. So say it was band 5, they could pay you at 75% for band 5 salary, and then when you return to the register, pay you at 100% of that band 5 salary as well. So that's another option that's less commonly used to my knowledge. Just to make you aware, we've produced a quick guide to support organisations in setting up return to practice, and it might be helpful to share this with an organisation when they're looking to support you. I think this should be available in our virtual booth, which you will have had access to during the day. And we're also in the process of producing a quick guide for our returnees, which Jana Beth, who will introduce shortly, has been working very hard on. So that will be coming out in due course also. We have a SharePoint site which we're developing for organisations and returnees to access more information on as well. So I'd just like to share with you some of our return to practice statistics. Over 60% of our returnees left the register at band 7 or above, and they have an average of 9 years of clinical experience when they're looking to return. So that's a massive amount of experience that an organisation can gain from taking on a returnee, and is a really quick win for them. So organisations will hopefully be really keen to take you on and support you to have you working within their workforce and contributing all those years of experience back into the NHS and social care. We know that at least 33% of our returnees in the NHS return at band 6 or 7. At the moment, I don't have the data for social care, so we know that the figures returning at these levels will probably be more than this, but at the moment I don't have access to that data. We've done some myth busting work over the last year, generally to raise awareness of return to practice, and one of the things I just wanted to highlight to potential returnees is you're never too young or too old to return to practice. The average age of our returnees is 44, and the oldest person we've had on the programme is 62, and the youngest is 25. So please don't think that the number of years you've been out of practice is going to mean that you can't apply to be back on the register. We will support anybody, regardless of age, if they are keen to return to contribute to the NHS and social care workforce. I just wanted to show you this slide because I think it highlights to potential returnees all the professions we've supported, and you might identify with your profession here on this graph, and it shows you in the yellow how many of your profession have started on our programme. The grey shows you how many inquiries we've had from that profession. The orange is how many completers we've had since the start of the programme, and the blue is how many people that are already registered with the HCPC that we've supported to perhaps gain a period of updating, perhaps if they've gone from a research role but wanted to go into more of a patient-facing role, we've supported them to do that. And to date, we have had 624 returnees return with the support of our programme, which I think is wonderful, but we would welcome many more and are ready to support many more of you, and welcome any contacts and queries that you may have following this event. So what are we working on, and how are we working to support return to practice and working to improve the journey for our returnees? So we're working on alternatives to supervised practice, as we know that sometimes supervised practice doesn't always work for everybody, and they need perhaps some sort of virtual or simulated environment that perhaps gives them a bit more flexibility to experience the practice environment, but in a different way. We're also looking at and working with our professional bodies more closely to help raise the profile of return to practice and hopefully publish some journal articles in collaboration with them. We have access recently to our ESR data for NHS returnees, so we can see what they're doing, what roles they're going into, and what hours they're returning to the NHS, which is obviously wonderful to see. What I'm working on is getting the social care data so I can see the hours that are returning to social care also. I mentioned before about the quick guides that we produced. We're also looking at doing some podcasts for return to practice as well, both to support our returnees already on the programme, but also as a means of raising the profile of return to practice and awareness around what the programme can offer. We're doing some video clips for, at the moment, for practicing psychologists, healthcare scientists, and also a professional returning in the social care setting. So there are some new resources that will be coming out in the near future. We're also working on a return to practice leaflet, as I know that's something that people have been asking for. We're constantly engaging with our stakeholders to raise the profile of return to practice, building our links and our networks to support our returnees in the best way possible. We're also piloting a coaching programme for our returnees and hoping to roll that out across the board to all returnees on the programme that we think it would be helpful for going forward. And as I mentioned, we're developing a SharePoint for ease of access to share information better across returnees and organisations. Just wanted to highlight the myth busting campaign we've done in the last year, and just to pick up on a couple of those things. You'll be able to find the full myth busting document in our virtual booth, but just to pick up on a couple of those points. So just to clarify, any paid employment, including a support worker role or volunteering that's undertaken with your own profession, can count towards your hours. As a returnee, you don't need to take exams and you don't need to retrain. You hold a qualification in your chosen profession, and return to practice is about registering with the HCPC to be able to use that protected title and work for an approved health, education or social care organisation. It's not the same as being a student, and it's not retraining, it's simply refreshing. You can see patients. Returnees have so much to offer in terms of skills and experience, and you absolutely can see patients on your return journey. So I'd just like to finish by saying thank you very much for listening. I've put on here my Twitter handle if any of you want to follow me, the website link for more information about our programme and how to sign up to it. And also we have a return to practice inbox if you want to email us directly with any questions or queries, and whether you know, perhaps you're not sure whether return to practice is the right thing for you at the moment and you want to find out a bit more about it, please drop us an email and we're very happy to arrange a call with you or answer any queries you have over email. So thank you very much for listening. Now to bring return to practice to life a little bit more, I am really pleased that I've got two returnees with me, Jana Beth and Rachel Gorms. And Jana, if I can just start with you and invite you to join me, and if I can ask you a few questions, if that's possible, about your return journey.
Yeah, lovely. Hi, Natasha. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and hopefully we can encourage some of you viewers who are hopefully thinking about returning, hopefully we can encourage you to take the next step and actually, start your journey.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think what probably would be really helpful to potential returnees here today would be to understand a bit about what provoked you to perhaps return to practice when you did, and how you went about it, Jana.
Yeah, so I originally studied at York St. John. I finished, or I qualified in 2012. And then I actually went abroad to work there because I'm originally from Germany. So that's kind of where I ended up after uni. And I have never actually been registered with the HCPC before. So that made it somewhat more complicated to return, but it's all possible. And the reason why I wanted to come back to England, I live here now and I'm based in Leeds. And that's why I wanted to return to the HCPC register and to be able to, practice physio in this country. So that's what prompted me. And also, I thought long and hard after my a bit of a career break. And I did study, I did work in Germany, and then I had a bit of a career break. I came here and I wanted to return, and I think it's just an amazing profession. Healthcare is muchly needed at the moment, and it was something that I've worked really, really hard for, and I still love it. I'm passionate about being a physio, and I wanted to be able to do it in this country. So that's why I Googled a little bit and found the Health Education England Return to Practice program, and I was really pleased that there's actually support available because I had no idea where to start.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Jan. That's really helpful. And I think that is something that we hear a lot from our returnees, that where do you start? And I think, like you say, hopefully the program provides that platform and that guidance to people to start and embark on that journey. Can you, just for anybody listening that might be interested to understand how you went about your return in terms of the route you took, did you use supervised practice placements or private study? What did you do?
Yeah, so I decided for myself that I wanted to do a mixture of everything. I actually ended up doing private study the least because it felt, for me personally, it felt the least official. I didn't know, listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos, am I just satisfying my own curiosity about learning, things about physio again, or can I actually add that? But it turns out you actually can add that to your hours, and it all adds up pretty quickly once you start. And then I did some formal study as well. So there's some amazing resources online that are available for sometimes a fee. Lots of the times they're free. I have used a platform called Physio Plus, which was really helpful, and I was able to get a discounted rate for that, and I was able to also claim, I think it was £50 or so, claim that back through the Serenity system, which is available through the funding from HEE. So that was really great. And then I decided, for me personally, it would be definitely most beneficial to get some hands-on experience in the NHS, because I wanted to return, work in the NHS. So I needed to kind of get a foot in the door, and decided to try and get a placement. And I actually did my return to practice placement with in Harrogate, and now I have a job with the Airedale NHS Foundation Trust, who have also been extremely supportive of my return. And now I have a job here, and I'm really pleased about that. So that was amazing.
That's absolutely wonderful to hear, and that's lovely to hear that feedback about the organisations being so supportive as well, which we know they are.
Absolutely.
And the icing on the cake is you've got a job at the end of it, which is wonderful as well. I wonder if there's any sort of advice or tips that you might want to share with any potential returnees out there, or just to finish off with, you know, anything that you feel, if somebody's sort of wondering, oh, should I do it or shouldn't I, or you know, that kind of thing, what would your advice be to them, if you have any?
Yeah, I mean, if you feel like you're on the fence about returning or not, then I would advise you to take the next step, because it's such an empowering process. I've had a lot of fun. Like, I knew exactly why I wanted to return, and I think to have that goal is important, and to do some goal setting, and, you know, really kind of ask yourself why you want to go back into it, because as you might all know from experience, you know, being a healthcare professional isn't always the easiest job, but it's so rewarding, and it just feels amazing to be back, and to be working with people, to be helping people, and also to work, you know, within a team of absolute rock stars surrounding me who are all on the same level. And yeah, it's just one of the best things, one of the most challenging, but also one of the best things I've ever done, and I would encourage everyone to do it.
Oh, well, there you go. Thank you very much, Jana. You've heard it from Jana. Go for it. If you're sitting on the fence, and contact us. Thank you so much, Jana. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. So I'm delighted now to be joined by Rachel, one of our returnee dietitians. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rachel. And I'm really looking forward to hearing you share your experiences of your return journey, and I'm sure the audience will be really excited to hear how you have gone about returning to practice, and how you found it, and a bit about your experience of returning with the support of the programme as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's really great to be here as well. I worked as a Band 5 dietitian just after being qualified, and then about a year later I took the opportunity to work for a church for a little while. I knew it was something that I really wanted to do at some point, and the opportunity came, so I seized it. And after 4 years, my circumstances, they changed a little bit. I'd moved out of central London, and I just got married as well. And it just felt like it was the right time to come back to dietetics. So that was when I first started to do a bit of a Google and think about how I could start the process. And it didn't take long until I found the Health Education England programme, and it was the thing that really got me started. So I'd started to do a little bit of reading and things like that, and I knew from the HCPC website that I would have to do 30 days of returning, but I just didn't know the nuts and bolts. So finding the programme and getting registered with that was really helpful, and it put me on to thinking about clinical placement as well. So I then just called up my local NHS trust. I actually sent them an email and said, I'm thinking about returning. Would you be able to give me any days? And they were so proactive about it. They were brilliant. As soon as I sent the email, they'd replied and said, we're not sure if we can, but we're really willing to try if we can. And then it didn't take long. It was just a couple of weeks until I had a chat with one of the dietitians there, and they got me in. I think it was 2 weeks later. I was in on Fridays. So I was working 4 days a week in my job, and that left me Fridays to then go in. And I did two days at the beginning of just shadowing. And then after that, that was me in slowly easing into seeing patients again. And I think that was the biggest thing in getting my confidence back, because I think I just thought, how are 30 days going to get my confidence back? I just couldn't see how I would be able to see patients again independently. But that was, if you have the chance at all to do a clinical supervision, I'd really recommend it, because you've got people there who are doing it every day. They're really supportive, and you can ask them all the questions that you just can't quite Google. And they just eased me in at my own pace, and they were really brilliant. So that was really helpful. And then alongside that, I did just private study and formal courses in my evenings and at the weekend. I wanted to do my return to practice in quite a short amount of time. So I think I made things a bit harder for myself than they might have needed to be. But it meant that evenings and weekends were studying. But it wasn't too long. I started by April time, maybe end of March, and then finished it all end of July. So it was quite intense, but it was nice to have it done. So yeah, and the courses, they were all online because of the pandemic, and my clinical placement, it was in person. But I find there's plenty of courses available. I think there's more CPD courses available now online than there ever has been. Yeah. And so I suppose the biggest challenge was my confidence. I just wasn't sure how I was going to get that back, but I was actually really surprised how quickly my confidence came back when I was in the environment of a hospital again. And also just that support group as well with the Health Education England programme on Facebook. People were asking the questions before I needed to ask them, so then I knew the answer. And I was quite quiet on the group. I didn't chat much, but that was because all my answers all my questions were answered. But that was really helpful as well. And while I was doing my clinical placement, about halfway through, there was a Band 5 post came up, and I applied for it, and I was successful and got a job. And again, that was really helpful, because I knew that the people who were employing me knew that I wasn't ready yet, but they were confident that by the end of return to practice I would be. And so that helped me along as well. So yeah, I've been working at Epsom Hospital as an acute dietitian for just over 2 months now, and I'm really enjoying it, I have to say. I find it actually so much easier going back second time round than starting first qualified. I think I'd forgotten that I did actually work as a dietitian before, and I had got experience, and that experience, it doesn't go away. It goes to the back of your head, but when you start to use it again, I find that there's lots that I've remembered and can use from whenever I was a dietitian before. So yeah, all in all, it's been really positive.
That's wonderful, Rachel. Sorry to interrupt you there. I was just coming in on what you were saying there. I think it's a really important point, that it's really about refreshing as a returnee, as opposed to, you know, the perception that it can be a retraining, or that you are a student, and you're very much not. It's just about refreshing. And I think you know, that's lovely to hear that you've had such a positive experience and been so well supported by the organisation that you were undertaking your placement in as well, really. Is there anything else that you'd like to, perhaps for those in the audience today that are thinking about returning to practice, is there anything that you would like to say to them, or any hints or tips you'd like to share with them today for them to think about?
Yeah, I think you've got nothing to lose by giving it a go. You've got a good, I think it's a year, isn't it? A year you've got?
Well, it's actually 2 years now, but it was a year, you're right. Yeah,
so you've got enough time to just dip your toe in, and if you're not sure, you've got nothing to lose. And I find actually just getting in contact with people, they were really supportive in it. And I think one of the big things that helped me, it can be a lot of hours to just think and to just plan and get to the end of you finish your first 2 weeks and you think, oh, I've done so much, and then it's just a drop in the ocean. But what I found helpful was working out when I wanted to finish it, and allocating how many hours a week that I needed to do to get that done. And I find that so much more helpful mentally, just to know, okay, well, this is my target for this week, and that will get me done at this point in time. So that's probably my tip.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful, Rachel. It's always good to, once you've decided and want to commit to something, to plan it out so that you have a time frame in which you want to get back on the register. And I think that's brilliant advice for our potential returnees out there. So just like to finish by saying thank you to everybody for listening, and thank you to both Jana and Rachel for supporting me with this talk today. Thank you very much.